Kung Fu Panda 4 will be releasing sometime in this month, and that's given me the opportunity to talk about the Kung Fu Panda films that have come previously. Specifically, I've noticed that there's these thematics in each movie installment of this franchise, which I think a lot of people seem to have overlooked. I've noticed that each of the villains from Kung Fu Panda represent a different phase in Po's life. So what do they represent? The conflict between Po and Tai Lung represent the physical conflict. The conflict between Po and Lord Shen in Kung Fu Panda 2 represent the mental conflict. The conflict between Po and Kai in Kung Fu Panda 3 represents the spiritual conflict. In other words, Po's journey has been that of body, mind, and spirit. And I'm convinced, given the premise of Kung Fu Panda 4, that the main theme of that movie is that of legacy. Because I keep calling Po Paul, because Po has managed to conquer the physical setbacks, the mental setbacks, the spiritual setbacks. And so now that Po has reached this certain position of being a heroic warrior, now he must embrace the next phase of legacy to pass down the mantle of Dragon Warrior to a new successor. So how does this all work? In Kung Fu Panda 1, the main conflict is about the physical. Po has very low self-worth in his own self-image. Po is a big fan of the form of fighting that's seen in the Furious Five, who are students of Master Shifu, who in turn is an apprentice of Master Oogway. However, Oogway has warned Shifu that a former student of Oogway is going to return, Tai Lung. In an ironic twist of fate, Shifu unintentionally causes a chain of events which would then get Tai Lung to escape from his prison. And so Shifu finds himself in quite a dilemma. During this tournament, Po wants to see who is elected, but Oogway chooses Po. Now, given the events of Kung Fu Panda 3, I think there's a lot more weight and significance to what Oogway meant when he said there are no accidents in relation to why he chose Po as the Dragon Warrior. Now, you could say, well, the story makers were just making this up as they went along with each installment. Yeah, you could argue that, but viewing the series as a whole, the whole context as to why Oogway chose Po in the first place makes more sense, because whilst the Furious Five are very skilled in their fighting, I believe Oogway chose Po not necessarily because he's the most skilled, but because he has the most potential. You see, throughout the first Kung Fu Panda film, Po expresses that he has a very low self-image of himself, even though he is quite a big fan of Kung Fu, and so he gives into the toxic self-image cycle established by the fat bastard in Austin Powers, in that he eats when he's upset, and he's upset because he eats. It's a never-ending cycle of trying to consume to make you feel better, and then getting upset because you consume, and so you consume to make you feel better, and so on and so on. But Oogway manages to encourage Po by saying today's a gift, that's why it's called the present. The series as a whole, having thought about it, is all about self-image and being more present. And having looked into mental health issues, I can guarantee those are definitely great virtues. So, as Tai Lung escapes the prison, Po is put under pressure to somehow get the physical capacity to take down Tai Lung. Po is a fat panda who gives in compulsively to eating a bit too easily, and is not very skilled in keeping up with the sheer ferocity of all the challenges and training. However, when outside of training, Shifu is quite impressed to see that Po has potential as Oogway saw it. Namely, whenever Po is motivated to get food, all of a sudden he has all this physical capacity for greatness. For example, he breaks through the drawers just to get to that hard-to-reach food, and Shifu informs Po that Monkey keeps his cookie jar on top of the shelf. And when Po finds that out, Shifu is impressed to see that Po has successfully climbed up the drawers and has a successful split just to reach the cookies. Shifu is impressed by the potential and now fully realizes what Oogway meant when he said there are no accidents. And so, having thought about this, Shifu has a very clever idea on how to train Po. He trains Po ironically by using his weaknesses. You see, if you've been paying attention in the film, Po does have potential. Don't underestimate his culinary skills. The ability to skillfully balance the plates and to articulately cut vegetables at a fast pace, that can actually contribute well to self-defense. So, Shifu aims for the strengths of culinary skills, as well as Po's weakness of enticement from food, to his advantage to train Po in very specific ways, such as pushing him to the limit when it comes to his capacity to balance plates, or getting him to do push-ups by enticing him with food on the floor only to have a hot stove by his belly to get him to push up, and various other challenges like that. And so, through this series of events, Po is able to accept his weaknesses and from there find training and strength bit by bit to the point where he's able to keep up with the Furious Five and do somersaults and all that kind of stuff. And for the first time in a long time, Shifu's actually having a lot of fun with the training, especially during a dumpling eating contest. You see, Shifu needed this just as much as Po did, because Shifu is also struggling with self-worth after he failed as a father figure for Tai Lung. Shifu was so fixated on duty and being a hero, but Shifu neglected the duty of being a nurturing father, which contributed to Tai Lung's downfall as a fallen hero. And there are a lot of videos explaining more about that, the drama implied with that, but let's just focus on the physical in this case, because the mental case of self-image contributes a lot to the physical well-being, because a lot of people often struggle at gyms because, oh, I did all this exercise, but I still look like a slob. Well, here's the thing. You're not going to get transformed into a beefcake overnight. It requires training. And that's exactly what Po accepts. Like, he's not going to become the Dragon Warrior overnight. It's going to require training. How does he train? Well, he accepts his weakness that he's enticed by food, and yet he accepts his strengths. He's got these culinary skills, and from that, he's able to train bit by bit to the point where he's able to become a great warrior. And so when the time comes, when the Furious Five found themselves defeated by Tai Lung, Shifu says it's time to read the Dragon Scroll, but when Po reads the Dragon Scroll, he's shocked to find that the Dragon Scroll reads nothing. There's no text on the Dragon Scroll, so how are we supposed to get the ultimate power to become the Dragon Warrior if there is no secret on the Dragon Scroll? So Po's adopted dad, the goose, Mr. Peng, inadvertently provides the answer. That there is no secret ingredient to becoming this Dragon Warrior. There is no secret ingredient to the secret ingredient soup. You just have to believe it's special in order to make it special. So that principality, it would seem, also applies to the Dragon Scroll. And that, when you think about it, it geniusly harkens back to what Po was already learning. You have to accept yourself as you are in order to embrace what you're capable of. That's why Po was chosen, because he's not the most skilled, but he has the most potential. I guarantee, having studied, looked into mental health issues, when mental therapists ask people, how do you feel about this person, and holding up a mirror to reveal themselves, the person they're questioning will then respond, and that shows insecurity. If you're insecure about yourself, it's going to inevitably come out physically. But if you accept your circumstances, without necessarily saying, I'm going to be like that forever, then you're going to find the space and empowerment to get physically stronger and physically better. And I think it's rather genius looking back that the Dragon Scroll is purposely made with this sort of golden reflective material, so that by the time Po gets the chance to fight off Tai Lung, Po is able to use his seemingly comedic ways of taking down his opponents to his advantage. His rather goofy ways of fighting are not to be ashamed of. They're actually a strength that Paul can use, that Po can use to his advantage. If anything, I see dance choreography and fight choreography as one and the same. They're both forms of self-expression and exercise intertwined. So Po self-expresses himself as someone who's quite goofy, he loves food, but he embraces the weaknesses and he uses that to his advantage, where his enemies underestimate the threat because Po's fat. I mean, fat panda, what kind of threat is that? But Po is able to beat them through that unexpectedness. So by the time Tai Lung gets his hands on the Dragon Scroll, it has that self-reflection on it, and it's rather clever that Tai Lung is rather confused and astonished when he says, "It's nothing!" And he sees a sense of dismay, but when he tosses it back at Po looks back at it and adds to what he learned from the Dragon Scroll, and he says, "It's just you." He looks down at the scroll and he smiles. He's quite content and happy and at peace with the physical state that he's in and his potential to grow. But Tai Lung doesn't see that, because all Tai Lung has ever known is get better, get better, get better, get better, get better, and if you fail, then that somehow means you're lesser. That's the kind of thing that was imposed onto Tai Lung, and that's the sort of thing that's imposed on mentally unhealthy people. So it's rather interesting how the physical weaknesses that turn out to be strengths serve as an advantage here, because when Tai Lung immediately afterwards tries to strike Po with the nerve attack that took down the Furious Five, because Po has been established to be so furry and so fat earlier by Mantis using the needle therapy session, it's implied that Po is just too furry and fat to gain easy access to his nerves. So when Tai Lung tries to attack his nerves, the fur and the fat makes it so that Po is completely oblivious to the nerve attack, to the point where it doesn't affect him, it just tickles. And so Po is able to comedically use his fat to take down Tai Lung once and for all. And so that's the physical conflict, that sense of self-image, self-acceptance, and the need to, discipline yourself to keep training in order to get better. I mean, I'm not endorsing being fat at all. I'm just saying part of what makes for healthy growth is accepting your circumstance and then improving what you can little by little from there. So by the time Kung Fu Panda 2 comes along, Po is in a state where he's at his physical peak. He's able to keep up with the Furious Five with ease, with cooperative attacks. He's thrilled at the prospect of taking down other bad guys, but there's mental obstacles that need to be overcome. When he comes across a wolf that he intends to take down, he suddenly sees the symbol that gives Po a flashback to his mum. He sees the symbol and he sees a vision of his mum, which distracts Po long enough for him to get attacked and for the bad guy to get away. Seeing his mum, Po goes back to the village to ask his adopted dad, Mr. Peng, about him seeing his mum. Okay, you might want to sit down for this. This is a shocking plot twist. The most shocking plot twist since The Empire Strikes Back. It turns out that Po's adopted goose dad is not actually Po's dad. Ah! Mon Dieu! How could this be? Even Tigress is so overwhelmed at this prospect. So anyway, Po's adopted dad, Mr. Peng, reveals that he doesn't know much about where Po came from at all. All he knows is that he literally came in a box, and that Mr. Peng decided to raise him the best he could from there. And so Po makes his way to Gongmen City after hearing rumors of Lord Shen, who has killed off Master Rhino using his invention of a cannon and threatening to take over China. Po receives more flashbacks to his parents and some traumatizing event involving a genocide of pandas, as it turns out. Lord Shen is the one responsible for the genocide of pandas. Why? Because Lord Shen was tampering with misusing gunpowder. in pursuit of power, and his parents turned to a soothsayer for some answers, and the soothsayer said, if Lord Shen continues down this path of evil, he will be stopped by a warrior of black and white. So trying to prevent that fate, Lord Shen tries to commit genocide on pandas, trying to seek reaffirmation from his parents, only to find a look of horror, leading to his parents banishing him, and Lord Shen swearing vengeance, and his parents died of heartbreak. Now, Shen expresses trauma from being neglected by his parents, and Shen is a mental manipulator. When you hear the premise intimidating peacock, that's not very impressive at all. Those two words should not exist together, and yet the way the concept is used in this film is brilliant, especially when voiced by Gary Oldman. You get this Shakespearean villain who's more of a cunning manipulator, who uses precision and tactics and distraction, which is visually represented by his feathers, to get the upper hand over his opponents. With peacocks, they usually spread their feathers for sexual mating, but with Lord Shen, he distorts that for genocidal terror. So by the time Po, who's still struggling with these flashbacks by the way, gets the chance to fight back against Lord Shen, he sees the symbols from Shen's feathers and he's distracted by the trauma. And Lord Shen reveals he was indeed there, and the soothsayer indicates that Po doesn't know much about his past. So by the time Po and the Furious Five escape, the Furious Five demand to know why Po hesitated. Now, people usually try to hide their mental pain because it's too scary to confront the issues of the heart. So they try to deny it or dismiss it or just suppress it or not bring it up at all. In this one particular scene, it's played off rather comedically, with Po giving a very sloppy excuse for not finishing off Lord Shen on time, only for Tigress to then intervene. And as much as the Furious Five have grown closer to Po as a friend, Tigress is still not afraid to get up front when she has to. And through that, Po reveals that he's traumatized by the fact that Lord Shen got involved with some event revolving around Po's parents, whom he's now separated from. Tigress understands and demands that Po stay put. But Po is still insistent on finding answers, so Po takes on Lord Shen head on. And here, Lord Shen uses mental manipulation by playing on Po's emotions and vulnerabilities and his sense of self-worth regarding his lineage. And Lord Shen has this very deceptive trick where Lord Shen is actually self-projecting his own insecurities about how he feels about his own parents and applying them to Po to make himself doubt himself. And this distracts Po, I keep calling him Paul. This distracts Po long enough for Lord Shen to blast him with a cannon, albeit Po manages to block himself with a pan on time, but nevertheless being launched. So with the Furious Five held captive, Lord Shen is confronted by the soothsayer, who says, "The cup that you seek has no bottom." And the soothsayer reminds him that, yes, the prophecy says you're going to be defeated by a warrior of black and white, but that's only going to happen if you keep going down this evil path. You can just stop this evil path at any point and just confront the pains in your life. But Lord Shen, despite being told that his parents did love him and died of heartbreak, he sets the soothsayer free. And similar to how Shifu ironically and unintentionally caused Tai Lung to escape, so too does Lord Shen unintentionally cause the soothsayer the chance to find and locate and heal Po. And Lord Shen is so fixated on power, he's willing to suppress his own happiness to get it. It's kind of profound how actually confronting your pain and confronting your sorrow can actually lead to happiness. It seems that deep down inside, Shen is afraid of confronting his own trauma. So the soothsayer finds Po, recovers him, and she enforces Po that she gets Po to confront his own trauma by doing so in the very desolated village where the pandas used to live in. And Po keeps trying to suppress and to push down all the trauma. But having studied mental health issues, I guarantee you the more you try to suppress the intrusive thoughts or tell them to go away, go away, go away, the bigger and scarier the intimidating thoughts get. You see, fear is a bully. This kind of traumatizing fear is a bully, and it won't leave you alone. It's going to appear, and it's not going to go away by you saying, go away, go away, go away. That only empowers it. So how do you get rid of it? The way to confront your fear and your mental trauma is to just let it pass over you. Remember that quote from June? Fear is the mind killer. I will let this fear pass over me and only I will remain. Paraphrasing. Well, that applies to mental health. You'll only be able to confront your traumas and your insecurities and your unhealthy fears by just letting it pass over you. But that's scary. That addresses the themes of the heart. That involves vulnerability. Yes, it is scary. It does involve vulnerability, but you have to be vulnerable, or else this fear is just going to keep attacking you right up here. You have to be grounded here, as well as allow the fear to pass over your head in order to find inner peace. Now, here's the thing. As much as the soothsayer keeps giving Poe the right advice, the harsh reality is that external people are not ultimately responsible for our mental growth. We have to step out onto the water, as it were. We have to step out onto the water and walk in the case of unsteadiness. And so Poe is able to do so. He's able to say, okay, I'm not going to run. I'm going to confront this. And so by doing this, he's able to more fluidly recall the past in a rather genius transition between traditional and CGI animation. And Poe addresses the concerns and fears of his heart. And it's painful stuff. Really, it's painful stuff. That's the kind of pain that people want to avoid because it's uncomfortable. But we have to confront the pain. We have to feel certain things in order to grow and to properly move on. Because how can we move on if we're just suppressing it? We have to confront it. And then the soothsayer says, your story may not have such a happy beginning, but that doesn't need to define who you are. What defines you is who you choose to be. Indeed, these disturbing thoughts that we disagree with, or the traumas of our past, that doesn't have to define who we are. What defines us is who we choose to be. So are we going to continue to be closed-in individuals who are just thinking in a victim mentality, never having the chance to step out and just constantly demanding from others? Or are we going to step out, embrace the potential warrior knight within us, and confront our fears and become bold? That's the choice that Poe makes in Kung Fu Panda 2. And in doing so, he's able to confront Lord Shen. In the climax of the film, Poe is able to be more present in order to brilliantly deflect Lord Shen's cannonballs, to the point where Lord Shen asks, how did you find peace? Poe reaffirms what the soothsayer told him, but sadly, Shen is far too stubborn to let go of his victim mentality, which leads to his ultimate demise. Boy, does that not reflect the woke culture of today. By the time Kung Fu Panda 3 comes along, an ancient enemy appears. Kai. Oogway used to be an acquaintance with this person named Kai, and they have fought many a battle as allies. Unfortunately, one day, Oogway got fatally wounded and Kai carried him all the way to a panda village. The panda village, for some reason, had this ability to spiritually heal, which was amazing for Oogway, yet caused jealousy in Kai. And Kai found out what could be given spiritually could also be taken. So Kai found this power to steal the spiritual essence of other people to empower himself. This power would threaten to the livelihood of China. So Oogway had to stop Kai, and he eventually defeated Kai and sent him into the spirit realm. By the events of Kung Fu Panda 3, Kai has been in the afterlife, gaining the spiritual essence of other fighters, and is now going to fight Oogway to gain enough spiritual essence to travel back to the mortal realm. Oogway says, before Kai does so, that the more you take, the less you have. This is a profound thematic key point to learn here, because the more people take materially, the more people try to take from others, the more they miss out on the spiritual aspects of love. Because taking, in the way that Kai is, leads to loneliness, but giving leads to community and love. That's the key thematic of Kung Fu Panda 3. Because the thing is, the spirit doesn't really adhere to the same rules as the physical does. I know there's various beliefs on how the spirit works, but I think people can unanimously agree that the spirit is the conscious part of you that can define good and evil and is empowered by timeless beauty. How do we achieve timeless beauty? By being in touch with love and family, not just some parts of our family for the sake of political bias and division. No, the whole family, even with their flaws, even the people we disagree with, because by choosing to love other people, we see the potential to heal. Po learns this when he's reunited with his biological father, and his own adopted dad travels with him to the Panda Village, and even though the Panda Village have lost their ability to heal, Po nevertheless takes some time to intimately get to know the Panda Village. By the time Tigress warns Po that Kai is coming, and Po learns about the Panda Village losing their ability to spiritually heal, Po more than makes up with it by teaching the Panda Village how to fight. So, by the time comes for them to take on Kai and his brainwashed, jaded minions, quite literally jaded, they put up a good fight, but Po is unsuccessful with the Whooshy Fingerhold because Kai has already been to the spirit realm and is thus immortal. So Po restrains Kai and uses the Whooshy Fingerhold on himself and fights Kai from there. Now Po is almost consumed by Kai using the spiritual disturbance of taking, but Po's family managed to embrace the love and community that was formed in the events of the third film. And so, through that, they find their ability to spiritually heal, because the spirit isn't really empowered by anything from this world. The spirit is empowered by transcendent aspects, because the spirit transcends the decaying physical and even the ups and downs of the mental. The spiritual remains permanent, steadfast. The spirit transcends the physical and mental, because the physical and mental is constantly shifting and changing, but the spiritual remains steadfast. And we can align ourselves with either good or for evil. We engage with evil if we try to entice ourselves, but we engage with good if we give to others and give ourselves to others. And that's the strength that Po's community is able to get in order to empower Po to defeat Kai. So, with all that said, what's the key thematic of Kung Fu Panda 4? Well, from the premise, it seems that Po is ready to give the legacy of the Dragon Warrior to a new student, some kind of grey fox thing played by Awkwafina. And his main enemy in that film is a chameleon sorceress who distorts that virtue of legacy. I'm pretty convinced that the fourth Kung Fu Panda film is about legacy, because Po is trying to give his legacy as a heroic warrior to someone else, but the chameleon sorceress is taking that virtue of legacy and distorting it to empower herself by committing necromancy to bring former villains back from the dead and stealing their spiritual essence, and by doing so dismantling the past in a way to try to empower herself. So we'll see how that conflict of legacy plays out in Kung Fu Panda 4. If you like what I have to say, and if you're interested in my insights, feel free to comment down below and subscribe to this channel for more. ScotsThinker signing out.